We are blessed to have not just you, Judy, communicating options, but that's kind of what we do here for missions. We have individuals that are passionate for a ministry area or connected in, and we try to have those ministries highlighted throughout the year. And yeah, great job, Judy. That was great to hear from you. And I think I have this right, that options is open for people just to come and visit and see, right? Yeah. A couple years ago, they moved. It's not really a new building anymore, but off exit 13 in Rochester. 120 Washington Street. So if you're ever getting gas at the Shell or driving by the Menzel's house and you keep going, if you're ever there and want to see, they're very open to showing people around, giving a tour of the place that God has provided for them. So a couple weeks ago, to be honest, I think every time I stand up to preach now, I will wonder if I will be able to, or if my emotions are just going to rip over me. But today's a good day, so I think the sermon actually can happen. But two things. Yes, so glad to see Vanessa. Welcome back to an outside service. We have missed you deeply, greatly. I know you still can't be with crowds inside, but so grateful you can be around. And just give us your stiff arm if we need to stay away from you physically. But man, really good to see you, Vanessa. And there they are. Really good to see the Pridhams in church today. Congratulations, Madeline and Casey. What a great celebration at your wedding. I think I probably mentioned I don't really recall a whole lot of what I shared 2 weeks ago, but God turned my morning into dancing, literally celebrating with you guys, and we love you. All right, and this sermon title, No Cattle, No Crops, brings back PTSD, because this was the sermon 2 weeks ago I was supposed to preach for us that we never got to, but we are leaning back into Proverbs, just sharing the book of wisdom together as we live this life that God unfolds to us, trying to figure out together, individually, what is the good life in this world that God has given us, with all of our ups and downs and the questions that come our way. How has God designed life to work? What is this wisdom that's woven into the fabric of creation? The Bible, Proverbs for sure, paints this picture of the wise man taps into this thread of wisdom that God has used in his creative order to find the good life. And so we're carrying this definition of wisdom forward. Wisdom is God's fixed order for life, an order opposed to chaos and death, to which a wise man submits his life. Meaning wisdom is already baked in. It's a characteristic of God that was with God as he created the universe. And those among us who are wise simply receive and tap into this thread of wisdom. And so Proverbs, the book, is Solomon sharing what he has received from the Lord of wisdom with his son. His son represents the nation of Israel. It represents eventually Jesus Christ. It represents us. Solomon is sharing with those coming after him what he has received of wisdom. And Proverbs touches general themes of life, wisdom foolishness. Conceptually out there, he spends the first 9 chapters exploring these general themes. But in these last kind of 21 chapters, it's super specific. This is what wisdom looks like in business. This is what wisdom looks like in marriage, in raising kids, in living in a neighborhood, business dealings, family life. Proverbs are observations about how life works under God, not promises. They're not promises that in every situation this will come about, but as a general rule, this is how the world works, and this is the good life under God's rule. And so we've said over the weeks, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Wisdom does not come by trying to mimic the things of wisdom. Wisdom begins with a proper recognition. God is sovereign over all, I'm not. And in that humility, that proper positioning before the Lord that we call the fear of the Lord, we can then receive what God has already baked in for us. It's a book that brings us back to the Garden of Eden. When God gave good, and his plans were good, and creation was good. And then the temptation that we still struggle with is God might be holding out on us. We ought to be able to discover what's good on our own, define what's good, pursue what we think is good. In Proverbs is this call back, that is not the way of the wise, that's the way of the fool. The way of the wise simply receives, because of our fear of the Lord, what God has already given to us. And so today we will be in Proverbs chapter 14. I'll read through the chapter and then we're going to park on one verse. So here we go, Proverbs chapter 14. The wisest of women builds her house, but folly with her own hands tears it down. Whoever walks in uprightness fears the Lord, but he who is devious in his ways despises him. By the mouth of a fool comes a rod for his back, but the lips of the wise will preserve them. Where there are no oxen, the manger is clean, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. A faithful witness does not lie, but a false witness breathes out lies. A scoffer seeks wisdom in vain, but knowledge is easy for a man of understanding. Leave the presence of a fool, for there you do not meet words of knowledge. The wisdom of the prudent is to discern his way, but the folly of fools is deceiving. Fools mock at the guilt offering, but the upright enjoy acceptance. The heart knows its own bitterness, and no stranger shares its joy. The house of the wicked will be destroyed, but the tent of the upright will flourish. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death. Even in laughter, the heart may ache, and the end of joy may be grief. The backslider in heart will be filled with the fruit of his ways, and a good man will be filled with the fruit of his ways. The simple believes everything, but the prudent gives thoughts to his steps. One who is wise is cautious and turns away from evil, but a fool is reckless and careless. A man of quick temper acts foolishly, and a man of evil devices is hated. The simple inherit folly, but the prudent are crowned with knowledge. The evil bow down before the good, the wicked at the gates of the righteous. The poor is disliked even by his neighbor, but the rich has many friends. Whoever despises his neighbor is a sinner, but blessed is he who is generous to the poor. Do they not go astray who devise evil? Those who devise good meet steadfast love and faithfulness. In all toil there is profit, but mere talk tends only to poverty. The crown of the wise is their wealth, but the folly of fools brings folly. A truthful witness saves lives, but one who breathes out lies is deceitful. In the fear of the Lord one has strong confidence, and his children will have a refuge. The fear of the Lord is a fountain of life, that one may turn away from the snares of death. In a multitude of people is the glory of a king, but without people a prince is ruined. Whoever is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who has a hasty temper exalts folly. A tranquil heart gives life to the flesh, but envy makes the bones rot. Whoever oppresses a poor man insults his maker, but he who is generous to the needy honors him. The wicked is overthrown through his evil doing, but the righteous finds refuge in his death. Wisdom rests in the heart of a man of understanding, but it makes itself known even in the midst of fools. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. A servant who deals wisely has the king's favor, but his wrath falls on one who acts shamefully. And so we get to talk about oxen today, which is a phenomenal topic for a Sunday morning. Verse 4 is where we're going to be. Where there are no oxen, the manger is clean, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. And one thing I love about the book of Proverbs is it invites us to ask, to wonder, to imagine, to try to figure out what the pieces are that Solomon is saying. It's a word picture or an image or statement that you have to engage with in order to receive. To picture yourself, where am I in this? To have those moments of realizing, like, wait a minute, I might be the fool. Or maybe to have those moments of surprise or gladness, like, oh, wow, I actually have some wisdom in some areas of life. Where am I? How would I know? To me, that's the best kind of learning, where we need to wrestle with a concept. Kind of take it in the grasp and figure it out. On the other side of that is great understanding, great learning, to put some pieces together and then some self-evaluation to try to land the plane. And so the proverb today certainly does that. Where there are no oxen, the manger is clean, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. So I do want to confess this. I don't hunt. I have never raised livestock. I have not even tended to chickens. And so on one level, I am not the guy to talk about oxen and mangers. But there is something enticing here that leads into relationships and desires. And I have tons of experience in that. And that's basically the outline for our sermon today. Oxen and relationships. So bear with me as we connect some of those dots today. Where there's no oxen, the manger is clean, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. Some things in life to me seem horrible. Cleaning out an oxen stall, it just fits that bill for me. Like I said, I was not raised on a farm. And so this verse brings me into an area that I'm just kind of a little bit repulsed by. Cleaning out an oxen stall seems pretty horrible. waking up early, spending all the money on grain, filling the feeding trough, shoveling up the oxen poop, especially in winter, right? Although then maybe the oxen poop is frozen, so maybe it's easier. But if that's your standard, it just kind of proves my thought. This whole thing is just horrible to picture. But although it's miserable in my mind for many, especially those who came before us, but many in our community right now, this is their life, and they would not consider it horrible. They would just consider it a chore, work that needs to be done. But in the winter, there's no plowing or furrowing, at least in our area. It's just oxen. I know in years past, Jerry Baxter used to tell stories about the town using oxen to roll the snow. So they didn't clear the roads, they just patted it down with oxen. So there's at least one use in the winter, but generally in the winter you go through all of this process, feeding and buying and cleaning, and there's no productivity from the oxen. I imagine for farmers, that's a tough time. You're spending a lot of capital, a lot of resources on the oxen, and you're not getting any results. And so this proverb is tapping into a thought that I would have, at least. There is a solution to make it all magically disappear. Just get rid of the oxen. Right? Because when there are no oxen, the manger is clean. Man, that means there's no poop, there's no early morning feeding them. I don't have to freeze to go out to tend to the manger. Where there's no oxen, it's just nice and clean. Simple, easy, manageable. And there are so many ways to make life easier, to make the choice that's cleaner and tighter and just less messy. So if I didn't have oxen, I wouldn't have a messy manger. We can begin translating that, right? If you didn't have a car, you wouldn't have all those repair bills. We can keep spinning it out. If I didn't go to church, I could have a relaxed Sunday morning and recuperate. But then this kind of thing gets really deep on us. If I could ditch that friendship, life would become a whole lot easier. Or what about family strife, relationship with my wife, the time you spend caring for the disabled neighbor, working extra hours for the private school payment. There are many spaces in life that my mind connects to the oxen. If we could just get rid of that, life would become much easier, much simpler, much more manageable, cleaner in so many ways. Just take something away and have a clean environment. If we want a clean manger, less work, less inconveniences, less struggle, it smells better, get rid of the oxen. But in doing so, Solomon says, there's a price to pay. But abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. If we get rid of the ox, the manger's clean, but we lose out on the possibility of the abundant crops that come from the ox. It's a proverb describing for us or attempting to convince us there are things in life that just take time and they're messy and we would rather not do them. But they are things in life that have a result that we need. It's describing the wise don't just look at short-term goals like making life easier, but their eyes see the longer-term goals, and they're building towards them. And so the hassle of the manger, the oxen, cleaning it all, especially for me in wintertime, is not the end goal. There's something beyond it that the wise see. The short-term goal is to make life easy. The long-term goal, however, begins to come into the center for the wise. If you want crops, which is a really decent long-term goal to me, if you want to feed yourself and your community, if you want something healthy and abundant, if you want something more than you have today or you're experiencing today, if you want that long-term goal, you need the oxen, which means you need to feed them and clean after them, putting in the work now for the results later. It's a proverb about if you want to be productive in life, you have to be willing to put in the labor, whether you're 20 years old or whether you're 60 or 80. And I just find that really fantastic that Solomon is taking a moment in a proverb to talk about in his agricultural society. Yes, there is an easy solution to make life easy. Get rid of the oxen. The manger is going to be clean if you do that. But there's a longer term goal, your sacrifice. To do the things you want to do, you most often have to do things you don't want to do. And that sounds like a pretty fantastic piece of wisdom for us, doesn't it? It's just the nature of life. To do the things we want to do, we most likely will have to do things we don't want to do. And that has nothing to do with being a good person or an evil person. It's about being a wise person following God. There's no command here, just a description of the way God designed the world to work. Because anything meaningful in life is going to have its upsides, but also its downsides. It's pretty neat that made it into the Bible. Like God cares about all of these spaces of life. And he gives us a gem. We all want the good life, right? I want the good life. But there are spaces on the way there that are going to be hard and messy and stinky, and we're not going to want to do them. And so Solomon gives us this little oxen proverb. Yeah, sure, without the oxen, the manger is going to be great. You're not going to have to worry about that. But you'll lose the abundant crops that the oxen provide. Yes, you could make your life easier. Torch that friendship. It's a drain on you. It takes time. It's a burden. Life would be much easier without that friendship. But in doing so, you miss out on the greater thing, that God uses his people to grow one another. Yes, it's easier short term, ditch it. But the beauty and the glory, the story that the Lord is unfolding among his people, that is worth the short-term price that we pay for the relationship. And so one of our top characteristics from our survey this spring was loving relationships. I agree. I think that is one of FCCB's blessings that the Lord has given us, that we experience loving relationships. But can I also add on, but not for everyone. Not everybody at FCCB experiences the blessing of loving relationships. Some of us kind of go Sunday to Sunday, and they hear that come out like, I can see that in other people, but I don't know what that feels like. I don't have deep relationships. And so it's kind of a Sunday to Sunday life, hoping they meet up with God, hoping something special happens in your life. But between Sundays, loving relationships, I don't know what that feels like. One reason I believe that is the case is because we like to keep our manger clean. I like to keep my manger clean. And adding new people into the circle of things that I do, that's really difficult. That makes me uncomfortable. That's another phone call. They may not like the things I like. What if we don't get along? What will the other people think? The three of us have gone shooting pool for years. The idea of a fourth person, not really into that. I like my major clean. And so we step away from the opportunity that when we meet someone, when God gives us someone near us, when our paths cross, it's a quick hello, it's an authentic hello, but I'm going to keep my major clean here. I'm not going to mess up what I have over here. Because it's hard to add to a friendship group, to be uncomfortable inviting someone that we don't usually invite to Dante's or to shoot pool. You and I have a tendency. We just keep our mangers clean, our relationships clean. But I think we have an opportunity to choose to embrace a wiser way forward together, to accept the inconvenience, to take the risk, to put the work in, to see someone and desire loving relationships more than our comfort or our clean lives. Because I don't think we can have both, is what I'm saying. We can't have both our comfort and embrace new relationships. I love this book of Proverbs. I need this book desperately. I drift towards foolishness all day long. And Proverbs is this corrective for me, this invitation, this calling to a different life. And I think we, FCCB, we need this book to guide us, to show us wisdom, to say it is worth the effort put in now for the long-term goals that God has in life. And so the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, but we have much territory to explore. And maybe I'll close with this thought. I could share specific names. Chris Bannon is the pastor of the Commons. And a couple weeks ago, they meet in the afternoon. He had called. He was going away with his family and asked if I could preach for him. And I was like, absolutely. So I went up, preached at the Commons at like 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. And I was like, this is terrific. None of you know me. I can drop all of my stories about all of my people on you for illustrations. I could use names in this, but I won't. I have been blessed richly and deeply because of new relationships in my life. Putting in some short-term work, carving time out of a day to try, tiptoeing in to say, I don't know if there's something, but I'll give it a shot. Putting in some short-term work in the stall has given me abundant crops relationally. And I want to encourage you. You naturally will have a friendship group somewhere. 2, 3, 5 of you. But the older we get in life, the more close ranks we have. It's just how it works. Kind of like our group. We're comfortable in our group. Can I at least encourage you that might not be the wisest thing for you, because I think God has something more for you. And it may be in relationships. Open up. Put the invitation out. Have the coffee with that new person that you just met. And see, will God give you some abundant crops there that you never expected? Because then that person would bear testimony to something, right? Man, FCCB, top characteristic is loving relationships. And I've never had friendships like this, and I'm so thankful for what the Lord is doing. Live life wisely and see what God might do with it. I'm going to close us in prayer, and then we'll begin passing out the bread, the cups for communion. If you are a part of Jesus' family, we strongly, enthusiastically invite you to this meal with us as Jesus gives us his body, his blood for the journey that he has us on. Let me pray, and I guess if the music team wants to sit, Seth, if you want to play music, yeah, that'd be great behind communion. God, thank you for the wisdom that you share with us. Wisdom about our emotions, our anger, our listening. But even in specific areas like oxen and crops and farming. God, we ask for your guidance as a people that we might open up to things that may not be comfortable, may not be time efficient, that we might invest in places to see abundant crops later. God, your desire for your people is to be an expression of your kingdom to our community. And God, as we cry together, as we laugh together, as we serve together, as we rejoice together, as we suffer together, oh God, I pray you bind your body even closer, that we might call one another friends. For those who come in lonely this morning, God, may you open hearts to accept invitations, to try new things. And for those of us who have been here for years, oh Lord, we pray you break down the walls of our comfortable circles, that we might explore for your glory and for the good of your people. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.